5 words. That's all it took. Not a scream. Not a confession. Not some dramatic courtroom speech that makes people gasp and reach for tissues. Just 5 quiet words, slid into my husband's ear like a secret, and I watched his whole body betray him. Damien Cross was sitting 2 seats away from me, in that expensive suit that always looked like armor on him. The kind of man who walked into rooms like he owned the air. The kind of man people called self-made, like the world hadn't handed him 1,000 chances on a silver tray. But in that moment, he looked small. His lawyer leaned in, covered his mouth with his hand like they do in movies, and whispered. I couldn't hear it from where I was sitting. But I didn't need to. Because Damien's fingers started shaking so hard his pen tapped the table. Like a nervous heartbeat you could hear. His jaw clenched once. And then his eyes, those confident, calculating eyes, flicked to me. Panic. Kept my face calm. I didn't give him a reaction he could feed on. No tears. No rage. No begging eyes. Nothing. Just stillness. Because I've spent years learning how to survive a man who thrives on reactions. The judge was turning pages, reading in that bored, official voice. The clerk stacked documents like this was just another case in a long day. Damien's mother sat behind him, posture perfect, lips already curled into a smile that said, finally, we're done with her. And I sat there, hands folded, breathing slow, like my life wasn't balanced on ink. But inside I was wide awake. Because I knew that look on Damien's face. I knew the exact way his nostrils flared when he felt trapped. I knew the tiny twitch in his cheek he got when he realized he couldn't talk his way out. I used to think knowing someone that well meant love. Now I know it can also mean strategy. Damien tried to recover. Of course he did. He straightened his cuffs, smoothed his tie, lifted his chin like nothing happened. Like he wasn't just shaken by a whisper. He leaned toward his lawyer, hissed under his breath. Fix it. His lawyer didn't move, didn't nod, didn't promise anything. He just stared down at the paperwork like it had teeth. And that's when I felt it, this quiet, electric shift in the room. Like something unseen had just changed direction. Like the air itself had decided, no, not today. The judge looked up. Mr. Cross. Damien blinked too many times. Yes, yes, Your Honor. Are you prepared to sign? He swallowed. Heard it. Even from across the table. Of course, he said, voice a little too sharp. Let's finish. Let's finish. He said it like he was ending me. Like I was a chore. Stain. A chapter he couldn't wait to rip out. And maybe once upon a time that would have broken me. But not now. 'Cause the truth is, I didn't walk into that courtroom hoping for mercy. I walked in holding something sharper than hope. Something Damien never saw coming, because he never believed I could see past his performance. He picked up the pen again, forced a smile, and slid the papers closer. His mother's smile grew. My pulse stayed steady. Because I knew exactly what page was coming next. And when he signed it, when his name hit that line, he wasn't just taking the house or the business or the win he thought he deserved. He was taking the weight. All of it. The kind of weight that doesn't look heavy until it's already crushing you. Damien's pen hovered over the paper. Just hovering. And I realized something almost funny, in the darkest way. He still thought he was about to ruin me. He had no idea. He was about to ruin himself. And then the clerk turned the page and said, Next document. Damien's lawyer went pale. And Damien whispered, barely audible. What is that? When Damien whispered, What is that? I didn't answer. I just looked at the page like I was reading it for the first time too. Because that was always my mistake in the beginning. Thinking the truth has to be loud to be real. Thinking if you're right you can just say you're right and people will listen. With Damien, the second you give him a reaction he turns it into fuel. Anger becomes hysteria. Tears become weakness. Silence becomes guilt. He's got a label for everything and he sticks it on you like a price tag. So I stayed still. And while his lawyer's face kept draining, Little by little, like the blood was running away from the truth, my mind did what it always does when I'm cornered. Rewinds. Back to the first time I learned how easy it is for a woman to disappear in her own life. My name is Mina Reyes. And I didn't marry a monster. I married a man who learned, slowly and patiently, how to make me smaller without ever raising his voice. I met Damien when I was 19. Not in some dreamy, cinematic way. I was working reception at a small property office downtown, wearing a blazer I bought from a thrift store and pretending I wasn't terrified of the rent being due every month. Damien walked in like he belonged on a magazine cover. Confident smile, expensive shoes, eyes that landed on people like they were either useful or in the way. He asked for the manager. I told him the manager wasn't in. He looked me up and down and said, "Then you'll do." That should have been my warning. But I was young and tired. And when a man like that singles you out, it doesn't feel like disrespect at first. Feels like being chosen. He came back the next day. Then the next. He started bringing coffee, asking about my life, listening like he cared, calling me smart, calling me different, saying things like, "I don't meet people like you." And for a while it was sweet. For a while it felt like I was finally stepping into a better world. Then the tiny rules began. Don't wear that. It makes you look cheap. Why do you talk to him like that? He's clearly into you. Text me when you get home. Right away. Share your location. It's not a big deal if you've got nothing to hide. Little things. Clean little sentences. The kind of control that sounds like concern. Until you wake up one day and realize your whole life is made of permissions. We got married fast. Damien didn't propose like a normal man. He didn't get nervous. He didn't fumble. He didn't ask me what I wanted. He said, "I'm not going to let someone else take you." Like I was a prize. And I still said yes. Because that version of him when he wanted me was intoxicating. He'd open doors. He'd compliment me in public. He'd look at me like I was the only person in the room. And I didn't notice how quickly that look changed the moment the ring was on my finger. After we married, my name stopped being Mina. It became Babe, where's my? Did you pay the? Call them and fix. It was constant. Always a task. Always a problem I had to solve. Kept working at first. Tried. I needed something that was mine. But Damien hated my job. Not because it was bad. Because it wasn't his. He'd show up unannounced, leaning on the counter with that smile. "I miss you." And my coworkers would giggle like it was romantic. They didn't hear what he'd say in the car afterward. "You like them looking at you like that? You enjoy attention. Do you need strangers to feel valuable?" It sounds ridiculous when I say it out loud, doesn't it? But when it's every day, every week, every month, your brain starts bending around it. You start adjusting your behavior before the accusation even comes. And then one night, he sat across from me at our kitchen table, calm as ever, and said, "Quit." Just like that. I laughed because I thought he was joking. He didn't laugh back. "I'm building something," he said. "I need you with me. I need someone I can trust." And I remember the exact feeling that hit me right then. Not love. Not excitement. It was pressure. Like the walls moved in 1 inch. I hesitated. I said, "Damien, I can help you without." He leaned forward, voice soft. "Are you with me, Mina? Or are you against me?" That sentence. That was the first time I realized he didn't see partnership. He saw loyalty tests. I quit 2 weeks later. And the world applauded him for it. Damien takes care of his woman. Damien's a provider. Must be nice. Nobody ever says. Must be scary. And I wish I could tell you I stayed myself anyway. But the truth. That's when I started fading. Quietly. Perfectly. Right into the background of his life. And the night I truly understood what that meant was the night I opened his laptop to pay a bill and saw a transaction I didn't recognize. Small one. Almost nothing. The kind of nothing that ends up becoming everything. I stared at that number, my finger hovering over the trackpad, and my stomach dropped like it already knew what my mind hadn't caught up to yet. Then I clicked it. And the name that appeared on the screen wasn't mine. My hand was shaking so hard I almost dropped the laptop. Not because I was scared of what I'd see. Because a part of me already knew. And my body was reacting before my brain could catch up. That transaction was small. Almost insulting, honestly. Like he didn't even think he had to hide it properly. Clicked it. And there it was. A name I didn't recognize. Not mine. Not his. Not a vendor. Not a contractor. Not an account I'd ever logged for business. Just a clean little line of text attached to my husband's money. Lila Hart. I stared at it like it might change if I blinked enough times. I blinked anyway. Didn't change. And here's the thing. I didn't start screaming. I didn't throw the laptop. I didn't run to the bedroom and shake Damien awake like you see in those dramatic videos. I just sat there in the quiet, with the glow of the screen reflecting off my hands, and I whispered out loud, so softly I barely heard myself. Who are you? Then I did something I didn't even know I was capable of. Got calm. Not the peaceful kind of calm. The kind of calm you feel when you realize you've been walking through a house with a gas leak, and you just smelled the fumes. I started clicking through his recent activity like I was doing routine bookkeeping. Like this was normal. Like I hadn't just watched a stranger's name crawl onto my marriage. I found another payment. Name. Different amount. Then another. And that's when my stomach turned because it wasn't random spending. It was structured. Regular. Predictable. Like rent. Or a plan. Checked the dates. Checked the amounts. I checked the bank routing like I was trying to prove to myself that I was misunderstanding something. And then I heard it. Car door outside. Footsteps in the hallway. Damien was home. My heart jumped so hard it felt like it hit my throat. I snapped the laptop shut like it burned me, shoved it aside, and forced my face into that neutral expression I'd practiced for years. He walked in smelling like expensive cologne and cold night air. "Hey," he said, loosening his tie like he was exhausted from saving the world. I watched him from the kitchen, steady voice, casual. "Long day." He didn't even look at me properly. "You know how it is." Then his eyes flicked to the counter, just for half a second, like he could sense the laptop had been open. And there it was again. That pressure. That invisible hand around my throat. "What were you doing?" he asked, still calm. "I was paying the electric bill," I said. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Good. You're the only one I can trust with that stuff." The words sounded sweet. They were not sweet. They were a reminder. This is my world. You're allowed to manage it, not question it. He kissed my forehead like a stamp of approval and walked toward the bedroom. I stood there, listening to his footsteps, and for the first time in my life, I realized something that made my skin go cold. Damien didn't come home to me. He came home to the version of me he'd trained. Quiet one. The compliant one. The woman who kept things running and asked for nothing. That night I didn't sleep. I waited until he started snoring. Heavy, careless, like a man who believes he's untouchable. Then I slid out of bed, bare feet on the floor, and went back to the kitchen. I opened the laptop again. This time I didn't just look at the payments. Searched. I looked for the account details. I pulled up linked documents. I dug through email receipts and calendar confirmations, the way I used to dig through legal files at my old job. And slowly, painfully, the shape of it started forming. Condo lease. Not under Damien's name. Under a company name I'd never seen before. Shell. Mask. And the address. I stared at that address until my eyes burned. Because I recognized the neighborhood. Not far. Not across the city. Close enough for him to lie to my face and still make it there in 20 minutes. I heard a floorboard creak behind me. Froze. My fingers stopped moving. The air in the kitchen changed, like a door had just opened somewhere. And then I heard Damien's voice, low and sleepy, from the hallway. "Mina." I didn't turn around. I didn't even breathe. Because I knew if he saw that screen, if he saw that name, this wouldn't be a marriage problem anymore. It would be a survival problem. And as his footsteps started coming closer, one thought slammed into me, loud as a gunshot. I have to decide right now whether I'm going to confront him or outsmart him. And he was only a few steps away. His hand landed on my shoulder. Not hard, not violent, just there, warm, heavy, possessive in the quietest way. I swear my whole spine went cold like somebody poured ice down my back. "Mina," Damien said, voice low, half asleep. "What are you doing?" I didn't turn around right away. Couldn't. Because the laptop screen was still open, and Lila Hart's name was still right there, staring like a witness. So I did the only thing I could do. Smiled. I forced a small laugh like I'd been caught doing something harmless. "Couldn't sleep," I said, tapping the trackpad twice like I was scrolling bills. I remembered the electric bill was due. He leaned closer. I felt his breath near my ear. That expensive cologne mixed with something else. Night air and arrogance. "You always do that," he murmured. "You take care of things." His tone sounded like praise. But I knew the truth. He didn't say it like thank you. He said it like good girl. His eyes drifted to the screen. I felt my heart slam once, hard. And then, like the universe threw me a rope, the screen dimmed on its own. The laptop went slightly darker, timed out. The transaction list blurred just enough. Damien's gaze lingered anyway. You know how someone looks when they're deciding whether to press you, or whether they already trust the leash they've got on you. He reached past me, closed the laptop with one smooth motion, and kissed the side of my head like he'd just tucked a child into bed. "Come back," he said softly. "You need rest." I stood up slowly, acting sleepy, acting normal, acting like my whole life wasn't splitting in half. I walked back to the bedroom beside him, and every step felt like stepping on glass. He slid into bed and fell asleep fast. Like a man who didn't have to fear consequences. Like a man who believed the world would always clean up after him. I lay there next to him, staring at the ceiling, and I realized something that hurt in a way I can't fully explain. I had spent years being honest with a man who was building a second life in my blind spot. No. I wasn't going to confront him. Not yet. Because confrontation is what men like Damien are built for. They train for it. They're good at it. They twist it. They flip it. They make you feel crazy for noticing the obvious. I've watched Damien walk out of situations that would have destroyed other people, just by talking. And I knew if I came at him with, "Who is Lila?" he'd smile and say, "You went through my laptop?" Then suddenly I'm the villain. Suddenly I'm unstable. Suddenly it's not about his secret. It's about my trust issues. So I made a decision in the dark, with my heart beating too loud in my chest. I would become the woman he already believed I was. Quiet, agreeable, and invisible. But this time, it wouldn't be weakness. It would be camouflage. The next morning Damien acted normal. Too normal. He made coffee. He adjusted his cufflinks. He talked about meetings. He kissed my cheek and said, "Love you," like a habit. And I stood there holding my mug, watching him like he was a stranger wearing my husband's face. The second he left, I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened the old drawer in the hallway where I kept my just-in-case stuff, the stuff I told myself was for emergencies, but never actually expected to use. Small notebook, flash drive, and a folder labeled taxes, because nobody ever asks questions about taxes. I sat at the kitchen table and opened that laptop again. This time I wasn't a wife. I was an investigator. I started with the name. Lila Hart. Search. Emails. Payment portals. Anything. The results were too clean. Like somebody had wiped their footprints. That's when I went deeper. The shell company name on the lease. I searched that. And I found it. Buried in registration paperwork. Crosstone Consulting Z. That name hit me like a slap. 'Cause it was new. Too new. Formed less than a year ago. And who listed as the organizer? Damien's business manager. Not me. Not our accountant. Not someone I'd ever been introduced to like I mattered. My stomach turned. Because it wasn't just an affair. It was infrastructure. A whole system built to keep me out. I pulled bank statements and started tracing the money. I expected hotel charges, dinner receipts, maybe gifts. What I found was worse. Payments to lenders I didn't recognize. Late fees stacked under different labels. A credit line opened under the company name, backed by Damien's main business. And then, the one thing that made my hands go numb. Notice. Not a love note. Not a receipt. A formal letter from the bank, scanned and attached to an email, marked urgent. It said the account was past due. It said final warning. It said plain as daylight, that if the balance wasn't resolved, action would be taken. I stared at those words and realized something terrifying. Damien didn't just have secrets. He had problems. Big ones. The kind of problems that don't stay hidden forever. The kind that spill onto everyone nearby. And then it clicked. Why he was always tense lately, why he'd been snapping over small things, why he was suddenly obsessed with separating finances, why he kept pushing me to stop asking questions. He wasn't just cheating. He was preparing. For an exit. From me. From responsibility. From consequences. I sat there for a long time, staring at the screen, hearing only the hum of the fridge and my own breathing. And I made another decision. I was going to gather everything. Quietly. Carefully. And if he wanted to walk away like I meant nothing, I would let him. But I would not let him walk away clean. That afternoon I drove past the address on the lease. I told myself I was just checking the neighborhood. Just looking. Just confirming. But when I turned the corner and saw the building, a sleek little condo complex with security gates and tinted windows, my mouth went dry. Because parked out front was a car I recognized. Not Damien's. Not mine. A familiar little white SUV with a dent near the rear bumper. The kind of dent you only recognize when you've seen it 100 times. My best friend's car. And my brain tried to reject it. Tried to make it anything else. But my eyes didn't lie. I sat there gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned pale. And all I could think was, if she's here, then this isn't just betrayal. This is a setup. And I was finally standing close enough to see the trap. I didn't breathe for a full 10 seconds. I just sat there staring at that little dent on the rear bumper like it was blinking at me. Like it was saying, yes, you're seeing this right. My best friend's car. Outside the condo Damien was secretly paying for. And my brain tried to protect me the way brains do. By offering excuses. Maybe she's visiting someone else. Maybe this building has another entrance. Maybe it's a coincidence. But my hands didn't believe my brain. My grip on the steering wheel tightened until my fingers hurt. 'Cause I knew that dent. I'd watched her hit a parking pole 2 summers ago and laugh it off like it was nothing. I'd stood there with her, teasing her, calling her reckless while she rolled her eyes and said, "Don't judge me, Mina." No. Not a coincidence. This was real. And I had 2 choices in that moment. I could drive away and pretend I never saw it. Or I could finally stop being the woman who pretends. Chose the second one. I parked 2 rows down and pulled my hoodie up. Not because I thought I was in a spy movie, because I suddenly felt naked. Like the truth had stripped me. Like anyone who looked at me could see exactly what I was about to learn. The lobby doors were glass. Bright. Clean. Too normal for something this ugly. I walked in slow, keeping my face neutral, trying to look like I belonged there. The security desk was right by the entrance. An older man with a bored expression and a clipboard. "Hi," I said, and my voice sounded steadier than I felt. "I'm here for, Lila." I hated saying the name out loud. Tasted wrong. The guard's eyes flicked up. "Unit." Blinked. Sorry I don't have it. I'm dropping something off." He leaned back like he'd heard every lie in the book. "Name." I swallowed. "Mina." He pointed to a sign-in sheet. "Write it down. You can leave it with me." My heart thudded. Leave it with him. Meaning don't go upstairs. Meaning stay where people can see you. "Actually," I said quickly, pulling out my phone and forcing a small laugh, "she said she'd meet me down here." The guard shrugged like he didn't care enough to argue. I stepped to the side, close to the wall, and pretended to scroll. But I wasn't scrolling. I was watching the elevators. One ding. Then the doors opened, and out she walked. "Come back," he said softly. "You need rest." I stood up slowly, acting sleepy, acting normal, acting like my whole life wasn't splitting in half. I walked back to the bedroom beside him, and every step felt like stepping on glass. He slid into bed and fell asleep fast. Like a man who didn't have to fear consequences. Like a man who believed the world would always clean up after him. I lay there next to him, staring at the ceiling, and I realized something that hurt in a way I can't fully explain. I had spent years being honest with a man who was building a second life in my blind spot. No. I wasn't going to confront him. Not yet. Because confrontation is what men like Damien are built for. They train for it. They're good at it. They twist it. They flip it. They make you feel crazy for noticing the obvious. I've watched Damien walk out of situations that would have destroyed other people, just by talking. And I knew if I came at him with, "Who is Lila?" he'd smile and say, "You went through my laptop?" Then suddenly I'm the villain. Suddenly I'm unstable. Suddenly it's not about his secret. It's about my trust issues. So I made a decision in the dark, with my heart beating too loud in my chest. I would become the woman he already believed I was. Quiet, agreeable, and invisible. But this time, it wouldn't be weakness. It would be camouflage. The next morning Damien acted normal. Too normal. He made coffee. He adjusted his cufflinks. He talked about meetings. He kissed my cheek and said, "Love you," like a habit. And I stood there holding my mug, watching him like he was a stranger wearing my husband's face. The second he left, I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened the old drawer in the hallway where I kept my just-in-case stuff, the stuff I told myself was for emergencies, but never actually expected to use. Small notebook, flash drive, and a folder labeled taxes, because nobody ever asks questions about taxes. I sat at the kitchen table and opened that laptop again. This time I wasn't a wife. I was an investigator. I started with the name. Lila Hart. Search. Emails. Payment portals. Anything. The results were too clean. Like somebody had wiped their footprints. That's when I went deeper. The shell company name on the lease. I searched that. And I found it. Buried in registration paperwork. Crosstone Consulting Z. That name hit me like a slap. 'Cause it was new. Too new. Formed less than a year ago. And who listed as the organizer? Damien's business manager. Not me. Not our accountant. Not someone I'd ever been introduced to like I mattered. My stomach turned. Because it wasn't just an affair. It was infrastructure. A whole system built to keep me out. I pulled bank statements and started tracing the money. I expected hotel charges. Dinner receipts. Maybe gifts. What I found was worse. Payments to lenders I didn't recognize. Late fees stacked under different labels. A credit line opened under the company name. Backed by Damien's main business. And then, the one thing that made my hands go numb. Notice. Not a love note. Not a receipt. A formal letter from the bank, scanned and attached to an email, marked urgent. It said the account was past due. It said final warning. It said plain as daylight, that if the balance wasn't resolved, action would be taken. I stared at those words and realized something terrifying. Damien didn't just have secrets. He had problems. Big ones. The kind of problems that don't stay hidden forever. The kind that spill onto everyone nearby. And then it clicked. Why he was always tense lately, why he'd been snapping over small things, why he was suddenly obsessed with separating finances, why he kept pushing me to stop asking questions. He wasn't just cheating. He was preparing. For an exit. From me. From responsibility. From consequences. I sat there for a long time, staring at the screen, hearing only the hum of the fridge and my own breathing. And I made another decision. I was going to gather everything. Quietly. Carefully. And if he wanted to walk away like I meant nothing, I would let him. But I would not let him walk away clean. That afternoon I drove past the address on the lease. I told myself I was just checking the neighborhood. Just looking. Just confirming. But when I turned the corner and saw the building, a sleek little condo complex with security gates and tinted windows, my mouth went dry. Because parked out front was a car I recognized. Not Damien's. Not mine. A familiar little white SUV with a dent near the rear bumper. The kind of dent you only recognize when you've seen it 100 times. My best friend's car. And my brain tried to reject it. Tried to make it anything else. But my eyes didn't lie. I sat there gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned pale. And all I could think was, if she's here, then this isn't just betrayal. This is a setup. And I was finally standing close enough to see the trap. I didn't breathe for a full 10 seconds. I just sat there staring at that little dent on the rear bumper like it was blinking at me. Like it was saying, yes, you're seeing this right. My best friend's car. Outside the condo Damien was secretly paying for. And my brain tried to protect me the way brains do. By offering excuses. Maybe she's visiting someone else. Maybe this building has another entrance. Maybe it's a coincidence. But my hands didn't believe my brain. My grip on the steering wheel tightened until my fingers hurt. 'Cause I knew that dent. I'd watched her hit a parking pole 2 summers ago and laugh it off like it was nothing. I'd stood there with her, teasing her, calling her reckless while she rolled her eyes and said, "Don't judge me, Mina." No. Not a coincidence. This was real. And I had 2 choices in that moment. I could drive away and pretend I never saw it. Or I could finally stop being the woman who pretends. Chose the second one. I parked 2 rows down and pulled my hoodie up. Not because I thought I was in a spy movie, because I suddenly felt naked. Like the truth had stripped me. Like anyone who looked at me could see exactly what I was about to learn. The lobby doors were glass. Bright. Clean. Too normal for something this ugly. I walked in slow, keeping my face neutral, trying to look like I belonged there. The security desk was right by the entrance. An older man with a bored expression and a clipboard. "Hi," I said, and my voice sounded steadier than I felt. "I'm here for, Lila." I hated saying the name out loud. Tasted wrong. The guard's eyes flicked up. "Unit." Blinked. Sorry I don't have it. I'm dropping something off." He leaned back like he'd heard every lie in the book. "Name." I swallowed. "Mina." He pointed to a sign-in sheet. "Write it down. You can leave it with me." My heart thudded. Leave it with him. Meaning don't go upstairs. Meaning stay where people can see you. "Actually," I said quickly, pulling out my phone and forcing a small laugh, "she said she'd meet me down here." The guard shrugged like he didn't care enough to argue. I stepped to the side, close to the wall, and pretended to scroll. But I wasn't scrolling. I was watching the elevators. One ding. Then the doors opened. And out she walked. Harper Quinn. That's her. That's my best friend. My ride or die. My late-night call person. The woman who held my hand when I cried over my first miscarriage and whispered, "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." She came out of the elevator wearing sunglasses. Inside. Like she didn't want anyone to read her face. My chest tightened so hard I couldn't get a full breath. She didn't look around the lobby like someone who was lost. She walked straight toward the exit like someone who didn't want to be seen. And right before she stepped outside, she pulled her phone out and typed fast. Nervous. Then she lifted it to her ear. I didn't hear the full conversation. The lobby had that soft echo, the kind where words blur into background noise. But I caught enough. Her voice was low. "Yeah, I'm leaving now." Pause. "No, she doesn't know." Another pause. Then the line that snapped something inside me. "Damien, relax." I said I handled it. Handled it. Like I was a problem. Like I was a task. Like I was a situation that needed managing. My vision went weird, tunnel-like, because suddenly I could see every moment Harper had been helpful lately with new eyes. Every time she asked, "So what's Damien saying?" Every time she insisted, "Just be patient, Mina." Every time she told me to calm down when my gut screamed something was wrong. She wasn't calming me down. She was keeping me quiet. I stayed frozen by that wall, watching her walk out, watching her push the glass door open like she hadn't just walked out of my life. And here's the wild part. My first instinct wasn't rage. It was grief. Because betrayal doesn't just hurt. It rewrites your memories. It makes you question what was real and what was performance. I wanted to run after her, grab her wrist, say her name like a weapon. Harper, look at me. Tell me I'm wrong. But I didn't. 'Cause I remembered the email, the bank notice, the overdue warning. Damien wasn't just cheating. He was hiding something bigger. And Harper wasn't just involved. She sounded like she was coordinating. So I did the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I let her leave. I walked out a minute later, keeping distance, acting casual, like I wasn't being split open from the inside. I sat back in my car and watched her unlock her SUV. She didn't look back at the building. She didn't hesitate. She drove off like she'd done this 100 times. I followed, 2 cars behind, just enough space not to look obvious, heart pounding like it wanted to climb out of my throat. She didn't go to a grocery store, didn't go to a cafe. She drove straight across town, to Damien's office building. The one with the glass front. The logo in metal letters. The place he'd always told me was too busy for visitors. Harper parked in the back. And she didn't go in through the front doors. She used a side entrance. With a keycard. My stomach dropped so hard I actually whispered, "No." Because you don't get a keycard to someone's office unless you belong there. Or unless someone gave it to you. Took a photo. Not because I wanted revenge. Because I needed proof. Proof for the part of me that would try to forget this later just to stop the pain. Then my phone buzzed. Text from Harper. Just one line. "Hey, can we talk tonight? It's important." I stared at it, my hands shaking. Because suddenly I didn't know which important she meant. Important like I'm sorry. Or important like Damien knows you're sniffing around. And before I could even respond, another buzz. A message from Damien. "Where are you?" My blood turned cold. Because Damien never asked that unless he already suspected something. And in that moment, sitting in my car behind my best friend's keycard entrance, I realized the truth was moving faster than I planned. I wasn't just watching them anymore. They were about to start watching me. By the time I looked up from Damien's text, I had that sick, sinking feeling. The one that tells you the trap is already closing, and you're just now noticing the metal teeth. "Where are you?" 5 words again. But this time they didn't feel like curiosity. They felt like a hand around my wrist. I didn't answer right away. I stared at the screen and listened to my own breathing. Slow, controlled. Because I knew one wrong move and everything I'd quietly gathered would turn into smoke. So I did what I've always done when I'm scared. I lied politely. At the pharmacy. Noah's vitamins. Even typing my son's name felt like a shield. Like if I wrapped myself in motherhood, Damien wouldn't look too closely. 3 dots popped up. Then his reply came fast. "Send a photo." My stomach dropped. Because that wasn't a normal husband thing to ask. That was surveillance. That was prove it. I looked around and realized I was parked on a side street behind Damien's office building, with Harper's SUV still somewhere inside. I couldn't fake a pharmacy photo from here. So I did the next best thing. I started my car. I drove. And I swear, every red light felt like it lasted 10 minutes. I pulled into the nearest convenience store, grabbed a bottle of vitamins, and took a photo right there. My hand in frame, receipt on the counter, fluorescent lighting making everything look miserable and real. I sent it. Then I sat in my car, hands shaking around the steering wheel, and waited for the next test. Damien didn't respond. Not for 5 minutes. Not for 10. Which was worse, honestly, because silence is where he plans. My phone buzzed again. "Harper, please. Tonight. Just you and me." I stared at that message like it was a snake in the grass. Because now I could hear her voice from the lobby, clear as day. I handled it. Handled what? Me. My questions. My marriage. My life. I wanted to text her back something sharp. Something that would cut through the pretending. Something like, "How long have you been sleeping in my blind spot?" But I didn't. Not yet. Because I wasn't ready to burn the bridge until I knew what was on the other side. So I wrote, "Okay. Where?" She replied instantly. "My place. 9. My skin prickled. Her place. Not a cafe. Not public. Not safe. My mind ran through possibilities like a disaster checklist. If I go, she can spin a story. She can corner me. She can bait me into admitting what I know. She can record me. She can call Damien. She can hand him a reason to paint me as unstable. And if I don't go, she'll know I'm suspicious. So again, 2 choices. Disappear. Or perform. Chose performance. That evening I went home like normal. I cooked. I asked Noah about school. I smiled at him so he wouldn't see the panic under my skin. When Damien came home, he looked calm. But his calm was too clean, like someone had wiped anger off his face before walking in. He loosened his tie. Tossed his keys in the bowl. Kissed Noah's head. Then his eyes landed on me. And he said softly, like a man being reasonable, "Did you go near my office today?" My heart slammed. I kept my face neutral, like my body wasn't trying to betray me. "No," I said. "Why would I?" He watched me for a beat too long. Then he smiled, small, controlled. "Just asking." But the way he said it, the air changed. Because just asking from Damien never meant just asking. It meant, "I already know something. I'm watching to see if you confess." Kept moving. I washed dishes. I wiped counters. I acted like a woman who had nothing to hide. And Damien let me. Until Noah went to bed. That's when Damien finally stepped into the hallway and said, "Come here." Not angrily. Not loud. Just flat. Commanding. I dried my hands and followed him into his office. The room I used to organize, the room I used to clean, the room I'd been quietly excluded from for months. He shut the door behind us. And then he did something that made my blood go cold. He held out his hand. "Your phone." And blinked. "What?" "Your phone," he repeated, voice calm. "I want to see something." My mouth went dry. "Damien, why are you?" He stepped closer. "Because I said so." There it was. Not love. Not partnership. Authority. My mind raced. If I refuse, he'll escalate. If I hand it over, he'll search messages. Locations. Photos. Everything. I stared at him and forced my voice to stay soft. "You don't trust me." He smiled like I'd just proven his point. "If you're innocent, it shouldn't matter." That sentence is poison, by the way. It sounds logical until you realize it's designed to make boundaries look like guilt. I swallowed and handed him my phone. And as he took it, I did the only thing I could do to keep control. I watched his face. Because even if he scrolled through my life, I was going to read him like a book. He opened my messages first. Harper's name sat there. He paused. Just a second. Then he clicked. My chest tightened so hard it hurt. He scrolled. His jaw flexed. His eyes moved faster. Then he stopped at my last message to her. "Okay. Where?" His lips pressed into a thin line. He didn't say anything. He just turned the phone toward me. "Why are you meeting Harper tonight?" Forced a shrug. "She said she needed to talk. She's been weird lately." He stared at me. Then he laughed softly like I'd told a joke. "Harper doesn't get weird," he said. "She gets useful." My stomach turned. Useful. So he did know. Or at least suspected. He scrolled again, this time opening my photos. I kept my breathing slow, even though my head was screaming. He stopped. At the photo of the vitamins. He stared at it. Then he zoomed in. My heart was pounding so loud I thought he could hear it. He zoomed in again, on the corner of the receipt. Like he was checking the timestamp. Then he looked up at me. "Good," he said, handing the phone back. "I just needed to make sure you weren't out doing something stupid." Stupid. That was his favorite word when he wanted to make you feel small. I took my phone with shaking fingers and smiled like my spirit wasn't trying to crawl out of my body. Of course not. Damien opened the door like the conversation was done. But right before I walked out, he added, casual, deadly, "Oh." And Mina turned. His eyes were calm again. "Come. If Harper tells you anything tonight, I suggest you don't overreact." My throat tightened. What does that mean? Damien shrugged like he was talking about the weather. "It means you hear what you hear. Then you come home. And you keep your mouth shut." And he walked away. I stood there in the hallway, frozen, holding my phone like it weighed 50 pounds. Because now it was clear. This meeting wasn't a friendly talk. It was a message. Test. Maybe even a setup. And I realized something that made my skin prickle. Damien wasn't asking where I was anymore. He was deciding where I was allowed to be. At 8:45, I sat in my car outside Harper's building, heart hammering, repeating one rule to myself like a prayer. Don't confess. Don't accuse. Don't break character. I checked my phone one last time. No new messages. Just the quiet hum of my engine. And the sound of my own pulse. Then I stepped out of the car and walked toward her door. And before I could knock, it opened. Harper stood there with red eyes and trembling hands. She didn't say hello. She didn't even let me step inside. She just grabbed my wrist and whispered, like she was terrified someone was listening. "Mina, Damien knows you followed me." And then she pulled me into the apartment and locked the door behind us. The lock clicked behind me. That tiny sound, click, felt louder than anything Damien had ever yelled. Harper pulled me in so fast I stumbled. Her hands were shaking. Her eyes were swollen like she'd been crying for hours, but the panic in her face wasn't the soft kind. It was urgent. "Dark animal. Mina, Damien knows you followed me," she whispered. Froze. Not because I didn't believe her. Because some part of me had been waiting for this moment the second he asked for my phone. I swallowed, forcing my voice to stay steady. "How?" Harper looked away like the ceiling might give her a better answer than I would. I messed up," she said. I didn't think you'd actually notice." My chest tightened. "Notice what, Harper?" She flinched at her own name like it burned. Then she said it fast, like ripping off a bandage. "I have a keycard because Damien gave me one." The room tilted. I stared at her. My best friend. The woman who held my hand through my worst nights. And I felt something inside me crack. But it wasn't hysteria. It was clarity. "Why?" I asked, quieter than I meant to. "Why would he give you a keycard to his office?" Harper's mouth opened. Closed. Then she walked to the living room window and peeked through the blinds like she expected someone to be parked outside. "Mina." Her voice broke. "Please don't yell." I actually let out a small laugh because of course she said that. As if my anger was the danger. As if the real danger wasn't the fact that she was involved. "I'm not yelling," I said. "I'm listening. Keep talking." Harper turned back toward me and I saw it, shame. Real shame. "He started asking me to help months ago," she said. "Little things. Picking up documents. Dropping off envelopes. Sitting in meetings when you weren't there." My jaw clenched. Why weren't I there? Harper hesitated. Then she whispered, "Because he said you were getting emotional." That word hit me right in the throat. Emotional. The favorite weapon. You don't have to prove a woman is wrong if you can convince everyone she's unstable. I stepped closer, my voice low. "Harper, look at me." She looked up, eyes glassy. "Was this just about errands?" I asked. "Or was this about replacing me?" Harper's face crumpled like she'd been punched. "God, Mina, no," she said quickly. Too quickly. He just said you were tired. That you wanted out. That you didn't want to deal with the business stuff anymore." I stared at her. "And you believed him?" "I didn't know what to believe," she snapped, then immediately lowered her voice like she remembered who had the power. "He's convincing." That's the problem with men like Damien. They don't just lie. They build a whole world around the lie until everyone lives in it. I took a slow breath. "Tell me what you meant when you said you handled it." Harper's eyes widened. She looked at my phone, then at the corners of her apartment, then at me again. And suddenly I understood something that made my skin prickle. Is he recording this? I asked flat. Harper's face went pale. She didn't answer. That was answer enough. I walked past her and went straight to the kitchen. I grabbed a metal mixing bowl, filled it with water, and held it out like I was offering her a lifeline. Phones, I said. Harper blinked. What? Phones. Worse. Put them in the bowl. She hesitated. I met her eyes. Either you want to tell me the truth, or you want to keep protecting him. Choose. That did it. She pulled her phone out with trembling hands and dropped it into the water. I did the same. The screen flickered, then went dark. Silence rushed in. Real silence. Now it was just us. No witnesses. No performance. Harper exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for months. He's planning to blame you, she said. My stomach dropped. Blame me for what? Harper's lips trembled. For the money. I didn't move. I didn't even blink. What money? The missing money, she whispered. The stuff that's not adding up. My throat went tight. Harper, I didn't steal anything. I know, she said fast. I know you didn't. Mina, he's already setting it up. She reached into her purse like it weighed 100 pounds. Her fingers fumbled. She pulled out a folded envelope, thick, creased, handled too many times. Damien made me print these, she said, voice cracking. He said it was for filing. But I saw the names. I saw your name. I stared at the envelope like it was alive. Open it, I said. Harper shook her head. I can't. Not by myself. I needed you here. I took it from her slowly and unfolded the papers. And there it was. A document with my name on it. My signature. My handwriting, almost. Close enough to fool someone who didn't know me. Not close enough to fool me. It was an authorization form. A transfer approval. Something that would make it look like I had access, control, intent. My fingers went numb around the page. Harper started crying quietly. He told me if you ever tried to fight him, he'd use it. He said no one would believe you. He said you'd look like you were trying to cover your tracks. I lifted my eyes to her. So you helped him. I didn't know, she whispered. Not at first. He made it sound like you were the problem. Like you were going to hurt him. I felt my chest tighten with something hot and ugly. Not just betrayal. Humiliation. Because while I was trying to save my marriage, two of the closest people in my life were building a narrative where I was the villain. I held the forged document up. How many of these are there? Harper wiped her face hard. More. There's a folder. In his office. He keeps it locked in the bottom drawer. He told me it's insurance. Insurance. That's what men like Damien call destruction when they want it to sound smart. My voice went very quiet. And why are you telling me now? Harper's eyes flicked to the window again. Because he's moving faster, she whispered. He thinks you know something. He's scared. And when Damien gets scared, he doesn't just leave. He crushes. Cold calm settled over me. This wasn't about cheating anymore. This wasn't even about divorce. This was about survival. I folded the paper carefully, like it was evidence at a crime scene, and looked Harper dead in the eyes. You're going to help me, I said. Harper flinched. How? We get that folder, I said. We get copies. We get proof of what he's doing before he gets the chance to use it. Harper shook her head, panicked. Mina, I can't, Hill. I stepped closer. He already will. That's the point. He's coming either way. The only question is whether I show up empty-handed or armed with the truth. Harper's breathing turned ragged. Then she whispered. He checks the office drawer every morning. Then we do it tonight, I said. And the moment I said it, the lights in the apartment flickered. Just for a second. Harper's head snapped toward the door. What was that? Yes. Her eyes went wide. Then 3 slow knocks. Not polite. Not casual. measured, like someone who knew exactly how much fear each knock could carry. Harper didn't move. She just whispered, barely audible. "That's him." The third knock hit the door like a countdown. Not loud, not frantic, controlled, like someone who already owns the answer and is just letting you feel the fear of it. Harper's eyes locked on mine, wide and wet. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. "That's him," she mouthed again. My body didn't go into fight or flight. It went into math. Where's the evidence? Where's the exit? What's the story we're going to sell in the next 10 seconds? I grabbed the forged paper off the table, folded it tight, and slid it under the cushion of the couch like I'd done it 1,000 times. Then I glanced toward the kitchen. Our phones sitting in that bowl of water like drowned secrets. Harper was frozen. So I stepped close, put my hands on her shoulders and whispered, "Breathe." "You open the door. You smile. You act like I came over because you were upset about something stupid." "Okay." Her eyes flicked to the door again. Another knock. Slower this time. My throat tightened, but my voice stayed steady. "Harper. Open it." She moved like a sleepwalker. Unlocked the door. Pulled it open. Damien Cross stood there. Not angry. Not yelling. Not caught. Not frantic. He was dressed casual. Dark jacket, clean shoes, hands in his pockets like he'd just decided to drop by because he missed us. That's what scared me the most. Men like Damien don't show up calm unless they think they're in control. His eyes swept the room in one glance. Me, Harper, the living room, the hallway, like he was scanning for signs of panic. Then he smiled. "Hey," he said softly. "Am I interrupting?" Harper's voice came out shaky. "Damien, what are you doing here?" He tilted his head like she'd asked something cute. "You didn't answer your phone." My stomach twisted. Of course she didn't. It was in a bowl of water. Damien's gaze slid to me. "Mina," he said, like my name was a coin he could roll between his fingers. "You're here." I lifted my chin. "Yeah." Harper wanted to talk. He held my eyes for a beat too long. "About what?" I gave him the cleanest lie I could. "Life," I said. "She's been stressed. I came over." Damien stepped inside without being invited. Harper instinctively moved back to make space, like her body remembered who had power. Damien's eyes drifted across the room again. His attention landed on the kitchen. The bowl. He paused. "What's that?" he asked, pointing lightly, casual. Harper's throat bobbed. "Oh, I dropped my phone in the sink earlier. I was drying it." Damien nodded slowly, like he believed her. He didn't. You could feel it. He walked toward the kitchen anyway. Picked up the bowl with one hand and looked at it like he was holding a small animal. Then he did something so normal it made my skin crawl. He laughed. A soft chuckle like the whole thing was funny. "You too," he said. "Always dramatic." He set the bowl down, but his eyes stayed sharp. "Mina, can I talk to you outside for a second?" Harper's breath hitched. I felt her panic as if it was my own. I didn't move. "I'm good here," I said. Damien's smile didn't change, but something in his eyes tightened. "I wasn't asking," he said gently. There it was again. That calm authority. The kind that makes people obey without realizing they're obeying. I stood up slowly, giving Harper a quick look that said stay quiet, then followed Damien toward the hallway. He stopped right by the door, close enough that I could smell him. Clean cologne, cold air, control. He lowered his voice. "You're getting curious," he said. And blinked. "What are you talking about?" Damien leaned in slightly like he was sharing advice. "Curiosity makes you sloppy. Sloppy makes you emotional. Emotional makes you predictable." My pulse thumped once hard. He watched my face like he was waiting for me to break. I didn't. Kept my voice light. "Damien, if you're worried about me being emotional, maybe don't show up at your friend's apartment unannounced." His eyes flicked. Just a flash. Then he smiled again. "You're smarter than you act," he said. "That's why I'm giving you a chance." "A chance for what?" He stepped back like the conversation bored him. To go home, he said. And sleep. And stop digging in places you don't understand. My mouth went dry. Are you threatening me? Damien's smile faded. Not fully. Just enough to show me the edge underneath. No, he said softly. I'm protecting you from consequences you won't like. Then he looked past me into the living room, at Harper, like she was part of the furniture. And Harper, he called out, still calm. We'll talk tomorrow. Harper's voice shook. Okay. Damien turned back to me and said, almost kindly, come on, Mina. I walked out with him down the hall, not because I wanted to, because I needed him to think he was winning. At the car, he opened the passenger door like a gentleman. Then he leaned in and whispered, so low I felt it in my bones. If I find out you've been following people, you'll regret it. I held his gaze. Good night, Damien. He smiled once like he'd filed that away. Then he got in his car and drove off. I stood there in the parking lot for a second, feeling the night air hit my face, and something inside me settled. He wasn't guessing anymore. He was hunting. When I went back upstairs, Harper was shaking so hard she couldn't sit still. I told you, she whispered. He always knows. I shook my head. No, I said. He suspects. That's different. Harper wiped her face with both hands. Mina, we can't do this. He'll destroy us. I stepped closer and spoke slow, clear, like I was anchoring both of us. He already started, I said. Those forged papers. That's destruction. We're not starting a war tonight, Harper. We're finishing his setup. Her eyes filled again. What if he comes back? Then we move faster, I said. I picked up the bowl and pulled our phones out, water dripping down my wrists. They're dead, Harper whispered. Good, I said. No tracking. Her face cracked open in fear. Mina. I grabbed my keys. We go to his office. Right now. Harper hesitated. The cameras. You have a key card, I reminded her. You said he checks the drawer every morning. So we beat morning. Harper swallowed hard. Then nodded once like she'd just stepped off a ledge. 10 minutes later we were in my car driving through the dark. Neither of us spoke much. Not because we had nothing to say. Because every word felt like it could bring bad luck. We pulled behind Damien's building, where the side entrance sat quiet under a dim security light. Harper's hand trembled as she held up the keycard. Once we're in, she whispered, there's no going back. I looked at the locked door, then at the keycard, then back at Harper. I've been living with no way back for years, I said. Swipe it. Harper swiped. The light turned green. And the door clicked open. The door clicked open like it had been waiting for us. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just that clean little click, the kind of sound that tells you you're past the point of pretending. Harper stepped in first, holding the door for me like she wasn't shaking. Like we weren't about to walk straight into the belly of the man who'd been trying to erase me. The hallway lights were dim. The building smelled like printer ink and cold air conditioning. Everything looked normal. And that's what made it terrifying. Because normal is where Damien hides his worst. We moved fast. No talking. Just footsteps and breath. Harper swiped her keycard again at the inner door. Green light. Another click. Another boundary crossed. Then we were inside his office suite. His desk sat there like a throne. His chair pushed in perfectly. Family photo on the shelf. Me and Noah and him. Smiling like we didn't know the future was sharpening its knives behind the camera. I didn't look at the photo. Couldn't. I went straight for the bottom drawer. Harper's hands trembled as she pulled out a small ring of keys. He gave me this too, she whispered, and the shame in her voice was real. I didn't comfort her. Not because I'm cruel. Because this wasn't the moment for comfort. This was the moment for truth. The key turned. The drawer opened. And there it was. Folder. Heavy. Labeled in Damien's neat handwriting like it was just another business file. M. Reyes. Contingency. Contingency. Like my life was a storm he could plan around. My mouth went dry. My fingers hovered for 1 second, and then I grabbed it. Inside, pages and pages of it. Copies of signatures that weren't mine. Transfer forms. Approvals with dates I'd never seen. Notes on sticky paper that made my stomach twist. One note was 4 words, written like a reminder. If she fights, use this. I felt my heartbeat in my teeth. Harper made a broken sound behind me. Mina. I swear I didn't. I know, I said, but my voice came out colder than I expected. Because it wasn't just her anymore. It was everything. The condo. The debts. The way Damien tested me like I was property. The way he said emotional like it meant not credible. And then, tucked behind the forged forms, was the real reason Damien had been sweating. The financial pages. Debt stacked on debt. Lines of credit tied to assets. Condo lease. Past due notices. Final warnings. A list of obligations so heavy it made my hands numb just holding the paper. He wasn't just cheating. He was sinking. And he wanted me to be the one holding the anchor when it hit bottom. Harper pointed at a section, whispering fast. That one, that's a lien. He said it was temporary. Temporary. That word men use when they want you to shut up. We didn't have time to take everything. So we did the next best thing. We copied the heart of it. Harper ran pages through the office copier. Her hands moving like she'd done it in nightmares 100 times. I folded the most damning originals into a separate stack. Pages with dates, signatures, bank stamps, the kind of proof you can't talk your way out of. And right before we left, I opened Damien's calendar. Just once, because I needed to know how far he'd already planned this. There was an appointment scheduled for the next week. 2 words that made my stomach drop. Legal strategy. And a note under it. Frame narrative. Unstable/money/betrayal. I stared at that line until my eyes burned. Then I closed the screen and whispered, mostly to myself. Okay. So that's the game. We left the office the same way we came in. Quiet, fast, careful. Harper's keycard opened doors that felt like sins. The night swallowed us when we stepped outside. In my car, Harper started crying. Full body shaking, guilty tears. I'm sorry, she kept saying. I'm sorry, Mina. I thought he made it sound. I put my hands on the steering wheel and stared forward. My voice was tired. Not angry. Just finished. He didn't just betray me, I said. He built an alternate reality where everyone would believe him. Harper wiped her face hard. What do we do? And this is the part that still feels unreal when I say it out loud. I didn't scream. I didn't fall apart. I didn't even feel revenge. Felt direction. We do it clean, I said. We do it legal. We do it smart. The next morning, I sat in a lawyer's office with a woman who didn't flinch when she saw the folder. Her name was Sonia Park, and her eyes were sharp in a way that made me feel safe. She read quietly, turned pages slowly, then looked up at me and said, "He was going to bury you." He nodded. "I know." Sonia leaned back. "Here's how we stop him. We don't attack him head-on. We let him choose his own consequences." So we did something that looked from the outside like I was losing. I agreed to walk away from the assets. The house, the business, cars, all the shiny things Damien loved to show off. But attached to those things were the weights, the mortgages, liens, the credit lines, the past due notices, the obligations he thought he could slide onto me if he sold the story well enough. We wrote the settlement so clear it was almost cruel. Damien keeps what he demanded, and with it, every liability tied to it. And when Sonia handed the draft over, Damien did exactly what men like Damien always do. He got greedy. He got smug. He got careless. He refused an audit. Refused delays. Refused questions. He wanted to win fast. So by the time we were back in court, back at that table with the judge and the clerk and the papers, Damien walked in smiling like he was about to end me. He didn't know he was about to sign himself into a cage. He signed, page after page, confident, beady, like a king marking territory, until his lawyer flipped to the addendum. And I watched his lawyer's face change. Then I watched Damien's face change. Then his lawyer leaned in and whispered 5 words. 5 quiet words that turned Damien's victory into panic. "You waived your audit, Damien." 5 words. That's what he heard. That's what broke him. Because the waiver meant he couldn't pretend he was tricked. He'd been warned. He'd refused. He'd signed anyway. And the judge, calm, steady, unimpressed, finalized it. Damien tried to object. Tried to twist. Tried to make me the villain right there in the room. But the paper didn't care about his charm. Paper is cold like that. Paper is honest. When it was done, when the gavel hit, when the clerk collected signatures, I didn't feel fireworks. Felt air. Like my lungs finally remembered what oxygen was. Outside the courtroom, Damien didn't chase me with tears. He chased me with rage. He hissed my name like it was a curse. "You set me up." And for the first time I didn't shrink. I looked him dead in the eyes and said, quietly, "No. I stopped covering for you." That's what it was. I didn't destroy him. I just stepped out of the way. And let his own choices hit him full force. Here's what happened after, in the simplest truth I can give you. Lila, his secret life, didn't stay when the money stopped looking like money. The friends who loved his dinners disappeared when the creditors started calling. And Harper didn't get to walk away untouched. She had to face what she did. She had to earn back the right to even speak my name. That took time. Took honesty. It took her sitting across from me and saying without excuses, "I wanted to be chosen. And I didn't care who it cost." That was the hardest part. Not Damien, the friend. 'Cause you can hate an enemy. But a friend's betrayal makes you question your whole life. And Noah, my sweet boy, he didn't need details. He needed stability. He needed a mom who wasn't living in fear. So I rebuilt. Not overnight. Not like a movie. I rebuilt in small, real ways. New routines. New boundaries. Therapy. Paperwork. Quiet mornings where I drank coffee without flinching at a text message. And one day, Noah looked at me across our tiny kitchen table, our new kitchen, not as fancy but peaceful, and said, "Mom, you're different." I swallowed. Different how? A shrug. Lighter. That word almost made me cry. Because that was the real win. Not court. Not debts. Not karma. Freedom. So if you're listening to me right now and you're in something like I was in, where you keep shrinking to keep the peace, please hear me. Peace that requires your silence isn't peace. Love that requires your disappearance isn't love. And control dressed up as concern is still control. The moment you stop performing for someone's comfort, your real life begins. I didn't become cold. Became clear. And clarity is dangerous to the people who benefit from your confusion. So yeah, that's my story. Not a fairy tale. Not a perfect victory. But a real one. Because I didn't just survive Damien Cross. I found myself again. And once you find yourself again, nobody can take you back to being small. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you've lived through something similar, share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.